CEO of Shaw & Associates. For over 65 years, Shaw & Associates has been your trusted local expert for wealth management, tax, accounting, and payroll. Thank you for voting us Yuba Sutter's best in multiple categories, including financial advisor and wealth management firm for the past 5 years. You can find more information at shawassociatesinc.com or 530-674-1150. Shaw & Associates is proud to support community radio.
And in with me today, I've got not only Ryan McNally, but I also have Fish in with me today.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, miracles happen every day. Ryan McNally, director of, you're going to have to say your title because it's longer than I think I have a mouthful for.
Yeah,
so,
hey, thanks. Yeah, Director of Water Resources and Flood Risk Reduction for the Yuba Water Agency.
So what does that title do for you? What is that title all about? What does that make? What's your job? How do you do that?
He has to buy bigger business cards. Get it all on
A lot of cards.
They fold out.
That's right. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. I'll just say that. So no. So yeah, Yuba Water has 5 different mission areas. 2 of those are flood risk reduction and water supply, surface water supply for our member units. And so that's really my division are those 2 elements of the water agency's mission. And so basically, I'm the drought and the flood guy, is what I tell people.
So you're the one extreme, both extremes, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So when we don't have enough water, they come to you. When we have too much water, they come to you.
Yeah, I have big shoulders, so that's what they get.
Give it to Ryan. What do you want to do with this? Give it to Ryan.
Yeah, he'll take it on. So Ryan, let's get to know you a little bit. Where did you grow up? And all that stuff, and how did you get involved with the water agency?
Oh my goodness. So I grew up here. I'm actually a lifelong Yuba County resident. I've only worked in Yuba County. Grew up in Marysville, went to Marysville High School, Yuba College. Worked for the county of Yuba, started there, early 2000s, 2001 or so, the Sheriff's Department. Moved over to Yuba County Public Works, 2006-ish. And then I actually transitioned up to the Browns Valley Irrigation District, where I spent the last 7-8 years or so as the general manager, prior to coming to the Yuba Water Agency, which is about a year ago or so now. I've been with the water agency. So born and raised here, and this is my community, this is my home, these are my family, these are my friends.
Oh, that's great. So you came in, you said, let's talk about flood risk. And, I'm looking at the weather right now, and it is sunny, it's fairly warm. There's no rain in sight for the near future. Are we worried about floods this year?
Well, we're always worried about floods, and let me explain that a little bit. It's not that there's this imminent risk right now with floods. Obviously, we're in a dry pattern. We're still in a drought, right? Yeah. But the year types change year to year. I mean, it could be. We saw that in December, for instance. Like we get these atmospheric rivers that come, from the ocean into Northern California, and it literally changed the hydrology overnight. We went from one of the driest years on record, to a record snowpack in December in literally a week, right?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
So yeah, absolutely. And so that's why flood risk is always on our minds. And that's something that, we're really passionate about at Yuba Water. And that's really the core function of why Yuba Water was created in the 1950s. The New Bullards Bar Dam was constructed in response to the 1955 flood. That's the primary mission of the water agency, is to protect Yuba County from flooding.
Yeah.
And so Yuba Water invests a lot of money in working with our partners to develop these levee projects to increase protection, to just for instance, the Feather River setback levee in South Yuba County, the Bear River setback levees in South Yuba County. A lot of that through partnerships, but Yuba Water was instrumental in providing some of the local cost share for that, to bring in funds from state and federal grant sources, or partners with the Department of Water Resources, Central Valley Flood Protection Board, Corps of Engineers. The list goes on and on. So flood risk is always at the top of our priority list.
Yeah. So with the flood risk that's happening, and not really that great, it feels like right now, but we still have quite a great snowpack up in the mountains there and things like that happening. What do you see happening for this year as far as the water and what's happening there?
So this year locally, we're in pretty good shape locally. Okay. So we're keeping a very close eye on the drought. It is dry. We don't see anything in the short term. There's nothing on the horizon in terms of significant weather patterns. But that storm in December did produce substantial snowpack, as you mentioned. So going back to the 1997 event, kind of a similar scenario, right? But the difference is our storage capacity at New Bullard's Bar was different. We have plenty of storage capacity.
Okay.
So we are not, it's not like, there could be an event where all this snow is going to run off and cause flooding concerns. There's still plenty of room behind the dam.
Yeah, I wondered about that, Ryan, if they were considering that, because you get all of a sudden you get a week of rain that just fills up everything, right? And then I noticed they were releasing water, so they are trying to keep it at a level that's sustainable, so that if we had another situation like that, a week of rain, that they're prepared for it. Are they kind of keeping a better eye on that now after being through the kind of the events of the past? We kind of going, let's not repeat that. I mean, there's a Pineapple Express coming through,
That's right. It's a good point. So yeah, I mean, that's part of the mission parameters of the water agency and other reservoirs. DWR does the same thing for Oroville. There's a certain percentage of that reservoir that has to be kept for flood storage throughout, certain months of the year, obviously through the winter and early into the spring. So yeah, that's something that we're actually working on, maybe making some or allowing some flexibility in that, though, in the future, because our forecasting technology is so much better and our communication with DWR is so much better that we can coordinate these operations, and it doesn't have to be this fixed target anymore the way we're used to. When the reservoir reaches a certain amount, you have to start releasing to keep that flood storage.
Yes.
Well, there's some flexibility now, at least. That's what we're finding, and that's what we're working on really hard with the Corps of Engineers and our water control manual update, and that's really what guides those releases.
Now you hear that California, as many reservoirs as it has, doesn't have enough. You hear that all the time. We don't have enough water storage. Is Yuba County considering anything along the lines of that? Is that even possible, or is it just a huge thing to try to create more water storage in Yuba County?
We always need more water storage. I'm a big advocate for that.
Yeah.
The Sites Reservoir, wherever we can put more water storage in, that's what we need. It's such a heavy lift in the state of California between, the regulatory agencies, permitting, and
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I don't want to say no, because,
you never know, right?
You never know, right? If we had, if we found a genie's lamp, that would be the wish.
Yeah.
But Yuba Water is working on another flood control element to the New Bullard's Bar Dam called the ARC Spillway, Atmospheric River Control Spillway. And it's 31 feet lower than the primary spillway. And that would allow us to evacuate more room in the reservoir for flood storage. But there also might be some flexibility with this water control manual update in conjunction with that spillway to store more water for dry periods. So is it creating, hard infrastructure for additional storage? Not necessarily, but there may be additional storage benefits resulting from that spillway. Those are some of the things we're looking at.
I see. And so with the way the weather's been lately in California, it seems like we'll have 2 years that are really, really wet, and then we'll have a few years that are really, really dry, and then it just keeps going back and forth and ping-ponging really hard for the last few years. What do you see in trying to manage that on your side of the job? What types of problems, things that you run into?
Oh my gosh, just that. I mean, there's so much variability now that we're seeing. It whipsaws from one to the other. When I first got into water was 2014 when I went to Browns Valley, and it was an unprecedented drought. It was near record, right? 2015 was really bad. But then we came off the heels of that into 2016, 2017. 2017, everybody remembers that was the Oroville incident.
Yeah.
And so there's no average precipitation for the state of California. There's no way to call it an average. So it just whipsaws back and forth. And that's one of the things that we're doing. We're trying to address that with this ARC spillway, because we're starting to see more rain events than snow events. So the rivers are going to be flashier. The inflow into New Bullard's Bar is going to be flashier because you're getting more rain. The snowpack is getting higher. That's what we're finding in our snow surveys. And so we're losing less of our snowpack that's, historically we've relied on for water storage. And so that's part of that ARC spillway, is to account for that.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of crazy to think about, that the snowpack is actually getting higher and higher. I mean, especially if you think about how Camptonville was snowed in for 5-6 days just recently. So but at the same time, we're having warmer Januaries too. So
Yeah, that's right. So in Browns Valley, I was noticing some of the oak trees are leafing out right now in January, middle of January. The oak trees are starting to sprout leaves. So it's just this weird, it's just this weird climate pattern that it's just so unpredictable at this point.
okay,
But with that said, is we're developing we're light years ahead of where we were 25 years ago at the '97 event in forecasting these storms, these atmospheric river events. So that goes back to us, trying to build in some flexibility with that water control manual.
and so what are some of the changes that have happened so that it's easier to predict how the water's going to flow, when the water's going to be draining from the mountains into the area, or we're going to get a substantial amount of rain?
Just technology,
Yeah.
right? And so the Yuba Water Agency, we're working with the Scripps Institute of Technology, or of Oceanography, I'm sorry, and all these studies are kind of going into this FIRO, forecast informed reservoir operations, and it's just technology, and it's just a better understanding of weather patterns and the impact to the region and the snowpack and the melt. We're looking at water content of snow, and because there are different degrees of water content in the snow. So
That's why they say the best snow is in Utah, because the water content is so low.
yeah.
So going snowing, you get so much. Going skiing up there, you get so much powder, and it's a completely different feeling than going snowboarding here. So
the impact on business, right? Because I remember early on when I came up here, I was working with a company. We were going to put in a climbing gym, and the backers out of San Francisco said that they had studied the area, and because of a weak levee system, they were not going to invest a lot of money to have a business flooded over, right? And so, of course, from that time to this, the levees have been strengthened and a lot of things have happened. Ryan, how much of what the water agency does in these going after things before they get here, right? In other words, we're building up the levees, we're doing this. How much of that is going to affect business coming here? Do businesses look at that a lot and then they go, wait a minute, I'm not building there? I realize that was years ago that I experienced that, but does that still happen? Is that part of what they look at when a business comes here?
Well, absolutely, right. It's just risk reduction for the businesses, and if they're nobody wants to invest in an area that's going to be flood prone or susceptible to flooding. So since 1997, we've invested with our partners $600 million.
Wow.
A lot of that comes from state and federal funds, but $600 million in levee improvements. And so if you look at Plumas Lake, that wouldn't exist today.
Yeah.
If that weren't the case. And you just couldn't build. There's moratoriums on building if you don't achieve a certain level of flood protection. And so absolutely it affects business decisions, of course, especially for the city of Marysville. We're working with the city and the Corps of Engineers on the ring levee right now, just for that reason, to make sure that Marysville is up to standard on at least 200-year flood protection.
yeah,
To bring in to attract businesses, and as well as to lower insurance rates, right? Flood insurance for the residents here. There's 12,000 people in the city of Marysville, but let's keep in mind this is also Marysville is the region's only level 3 trauma center, and so those are things that weigh into this.
Yeah. What about surface water? Because people have said to me, well, in a drought, Marysville has got such great surface water, they could pump water over to Yuba City. They said literally the surface water here is a big plus.
So are you saying, we have surface water, which is in the rivers, but are you referring to groundwater? Like
Groundwater, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh
groundwater.
my gosh. Yeah. So that's something that's another hat I wear, is the groundwater management.
Yeah.
So we are in really good shape for groundwater. And that's something that Yuba Water has done for quite a few years now, has really been mindful about, pumping and maintaining our aquifer, because really, although our surface water is a huge asset to us, our groundwater is our insurance policy for our farmers, for the cities. for the municipalities out in South Yuba County, yeah, we're in great shape as far as groundwater goes.
Yeah, that's what I meant, groundwater. And somebody had, I know they were jokingly saying it. He said, well, Yuba City's going to be buying water from Marysville because Marysville's got this great groundwater system. And even in a drought, apparently it didn't reduce the groundwater that much. And so that's really a plus. You're right. That's like an insurance policy, right? We still have water.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, we saw in this last year, so the groundwater basin does, obviously if you're pumping groundwater, there is an impact, but it's not nearly the impact that one would imagine. It depletes it a little bit, but where we're so fortunate here is the recovery is almost instantaneous.
Wow.
When we get these rains, the groundwater basin recovers. And the other thing that helps it recover is that we're delivering surface water to both the north end of Yuba County and the south end of Yuba County through our member units, through the farmers. So whenever you see those rice fields out there that are delivered by surface water, all that water makes its way back down into the groundwater basin. And so it really, when you asked about more storage, that's another element of that, right? I mean, our reservoir is also beneath our feet. That's one of our reservoirs.
Yeah, and so you're talking about how all the many hats you wear at the Yuba Water Agency. Do you have a rack of hats behind your desk, and you're like, somebody comes in to talk to you about droughts and the risk of the lack of water, so you put your drought hat on, or then your flood hat, or your groundwater hat?
You know what? I don't. That's a really good idea. I do find I have to take just a second or so to shift gears in my mind. So putting a hat on would probably be a good trigger for that. There
you go. So Ryan, as far as the residents go and things like that, especially Yuba County, Sutter County, what should we be looking out for as far as the water levels go? As far as, are we worried about a flood? Are we worried about drought? What are we looking forward for 2022?
For 2022, it's so dynamic. It's hard to. I don't want to make predictions here, but right now it's dry, right?
Okay.
So I think we're looking at a similar year to what we saw, and probably not as bad as last year, just locally, because we are fortunate enough to have the snowpack that's going to inflow into our reservoir. So the surface water is going to be relatively good this year.
Okay.
Our groundwater basins have recovered nicely, so we're in good shape for the city of Marysville, Oliver's Public Utility District, Linda County Water, all the groundwater basins have recovered. So we're fine for this year. It's just long term that we're really worried about. Flooding, things can change. If it rains for 40 days and 40 nights, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's who knows. So it's really hard, and that's what makes this job so interesting. It's so dynamic, it's so flashy that it can change, as we saw in December. It can change overnight.
Yeah. Awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for coming in. Our time is almost up. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the community before we end the interview?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Well, we're, just the whole flood risk thing. I've been talking a lot about the 25 years since 1997 and where we've come since 1997. And as I mentioned, $600 million have been leveraged toward these flood risk reduction projects. And I really want to give a shout out to our partners, because Yuba Water, we don't own or operate any levees, right? We operate the dam. That's it. All of the flood risk reduction, or the flood infrastructure on the valley floor, are reclamation districts, our partnering reclamation districts. So that's really who makes this possible. And we're just happy to help wherever we can, because it is our mission.
Yeah. Ryan, thank you so much for coming in today. It was great to have you. Ryan McNally with the Yuba Water Agency.
This community interview is made possible by Shaw and Associates.
I'm Dave Shaw, President and CEO of Shaw and Associates. For over 65 years, Shaw and Associates has been your trusted local expert for wealth management, tax, accounting, and payroll. Thank you for voting us Yuba Sutter's best in multiple categories, including financial advisor and wealth management firm for the past 5 years. You can find more information at shawassociatesinc.com or 530-674-1150. Shaw and Associates is proud to support community.